Venice, to the heart of AICRE, the Italian Association for the Council of Municipalities and Regions, and to the heart of local action for SDGs. We want you to sit back and think of what Venice represents for humanity. It represents the best of us, right? The resiliency, the creativity, the art, the willingness to create together, to come together and resist over time. It also represents some of the greatest challenges that we need to face together. How do we resist? How do we make sure that our model does not become obsolete? How do we make sure that we don't overdo tourism and mass consumption? It represents many of the worries that we are looking at together. Today and this year, of course, Venice City Solutions 2020 is a very special gathering, because when the world is facing a pandemic like the one that we are facing, and when we are all focused on how do we overcome that together, and health is one of our main concerns, what we want to do is to challenge you to think beyond and to do an exercise of creativity and inspiration, like the one that we do every year. And for that, we have an incredible lineup of partners. We want you to visualize the SDGs in the cities, in the local governments, in the territories close to you, because all the organizations that are involved in this endeavor and that come together every year are convinced that the only way that the SDGs will be achieved, and that Agenda 2030, that ambitious universal agenda that we have given ourselves as humanity, can be successful, is if it is owned at the local level, if it is owned by the cities, by the citizens. And that's why I am delighted to thank again some of our key partners. I am certain that Carla will mention many more, but I would like to put special attention in some of the very critical ones. Without them, we would not be coming together. AICRE, of course, is behind this great idea. We have UN Habitat, that is always there as a diehard for cities, for local and regional governments and their associations. UNDP, the capacity of UNDP to mobilize is critical for us, but also our shared vision on development is very much part and parcel of this activity. And of course, the Action Campaign, which is one of our places of where we go to for ideas, for breaking the rules, thinking outside of the box. I want to acknowledge also another network that we all belong to, Platforma, because it's a very interesting mix of different local government associations and very relevant partners that will also be taking the floor today. And of course, I am delighted to say that United Cities and Local Governments not only powers this event, but is delighted to consider Venice City Solutions as the hub of hubs, the hub of hubs for local for action. For us, the localization of the SDGs is not only implementation of global goals at local level, but is actually political commitment at local level to find local solutions and to shape the world together. That's the invitation that we are doing. We want to make sure that we get to learn from each other. And for that exercise, it is a very critical partner, the Academy. We are very grateful for the University of Venice to be with us, to have accompanied us in many of these events, but also civil society. And again, Carla, you will have the job later on to tell us who is making all of this possible. But we want you to be sure that this event is a global event that is locally powered. And For local power and for national connections, the importance of connecting local agendas to national objectives and global solutions, I am very happy to be able to introduce a video message from the representative of Italy to the United Nations, Mariangela Zappia. We will see her message and we'll come back to you very soon. Please pay attention.
Good afternoon. I thank President Bonaccini, ICRE, and its partners for inviting me to this opening session of Venice City Solution 2030. Cities represent half of the world's population and 2/3 of the global economy. This is why localizing the SDGs must be a cornerstone of our effort to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. In many countries, as it is the case for Italy, local authorities play a central role in providing efficient, essential services to their citizens, from health and sanitation to education, mobility and security. They have been on the front line of the COVID health emergency and are bearing the brunt of its socio-economic impact. Their role will be, therefore, crucial also in shaping a recovery for a more inclusive, resilient and sustainable future in line with the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement. Indeed, engaging local authorities and all relevant actors at the community level will be crucial to strengthening our health systems, enhancing energy efficiency and savings, reducing food loss and waste, and improving recycling methods. Local authorities are fundamental actors in implementing eco-friendly public mobility and establishing sustainable tourism models, for reducing architectural barriers and granting universal access to digital networks. Local authorities have long called for more recognition of their role in climate action and in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. And today we have reached a tipping point in this process. Initiatives such as Venice City Solution 2030 or the Italian Sustainable Development Festival, a finalist of the SDG Action Awards, have helped mobilize citizens, local authorities, businesses, associations and institutions in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and its diplomatic network have granted their full support to these realities, including through the launch of Together for SDGs, Insieme per gli SDG, a campaign which includes the participation of the cities of Teramo, Prato, Cremona and Bari in the initiative Cities for SDGs, aimed at inspiring and connecting people through street art and mural projects. In a week, Italy will take the important responsibility of presiding the G20. As highlighted by Prime Minister Conte and Foreign Minister Di Maio, our presidency will attach special importance to the role of cities and urban areas, especially in terms of connectivity, sustainable development, and reduction of inequalities, recognizing their specific innovative contribution to the implementation of the SDGs. Over the past 2 decades, cities have been incubators of movements aimed to improve resilience and sustainability, as well as testing ground for transformational approaches to global challenges in a manner that is reshaping our living spaces and social fabric. They have continued to do so during the COVID emergency. The exchange of experiences and innovative ideas, the peer-to-peer learning and the networking of local actors on a global scale are among the most relevant factors that have contributed to this virtuous process. This is why initiatives such as Venice City Solution 2030 are so important in shaping a better future for us all. And you can count on our full support. I wish you all a very fruitful discussion today, and I look forward to meeting you all in person next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this message. The permanent representative has been very clear, and I think it's a very bold message as well. I mean, she is not only talking about the importance that we have as incubators, but also acknowledging the key role that local service provision, and she has named a few, plays in the achievement of the SDGs, in the development agenda in general. As you know, local and regional government networks, we are working hard to ensure that local service provision is acknowledged as a very critical part of any of the recovery packages that we face, and that also that they are acknowledged not only as an afterthought in the policy development of the implementation of the SDGs, in the voluntary national reviews and plans. So a very strong message indeed, which I think we can build on. And I am delighted to hear also about G20, because as you know, we facilitate Urban 20, and we really hope, President Bonaccini, that we will have very strong voices of cities in that next summit, and that we can build on strong messages. So this is a good introduction for you, President of Emilia Romagna, President of AICRE, and President of the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, and the UCLG section. Stefano Bonaccini, you need no introductions. We know that you are a champion on SDGs, but we also know the hard times that your territory has been facing with the pandemic, alike many other territories worldwide. The floor is yours, President.
Grazie Emilia, un saluto a tutti. Io vi parlo da casa perché sto ancora curando la polmonite da Covid che mi ha colpito un mese fa, per cui sto recuperando, ma ancora non ne sono uscito del tutto. Credo sia questo un appuntamento molto importante. Lo è per le ragioni che venivano indicate nell'introduzione e nei primi interventi. Lo è perché guardiamo tutti all'Agenda 2030 dell'ONU come stella polare e riferimento per politiche che devono diventare finalmente su scala globale politiche condivise. Ho sempre sostenuto che ci dobbiamo dare da fare per salvare il bene più prezioso che abbiamo, che è il pianeta Terra. Compromesso da troppi rinvii, decisioni maturate, prese però lasciate. Mi permetto di dire che ci fu grande speranza attorno alla COP21 di Parigi, che nel 2015 vede sottoscrivere un accordo sull'ambiente tra i grandi paesi del mondo, tra le più importanti nazioni del mondo. Va detto, senza che nessuno si offenda, che in particolare Trump e l'amministrazione americana stracciò quell'accordo. Oggi mi pare che con l'amministrazione Biden possa riprendere un dialogo più, come dire, condiviso col resto del pianeta per la forza che gli Stati Uniti hanno. La Cina, ad esempio, è un paese che in questi anni si sta dando molto da fare per una riconversione ambientale ed ecologica, e parliamo di due tra le più grandi potenze del mondo, ma tutti quanti dobbiamo fare di più. Ha fatto troppo poco il mondo, l'Europa, l'Italia, la mia regione, io stesso. Devo dirvi che l'Agenda 2030 è stata assunta, ad esempio, dal CMR come riferimento per le politiche che insieme alle città e alle regioni stiamo mettendo in campo, parlo per la responsabilità che ho, nell'agenda europea. E il prossimo Recovery Fund, che dovrà dare risorse ai paesi europei, tra cui l'Italia, più colpiti dalla pandemia, l'Italia ma non solo, è una grande opportunità di sviluppo che, grazie anche all'impegno di von der Leyen, mette con il Green New Deal la sostenibilità delle politiche al centro finalmente delle azioni che l'Europa dovrà fare. È evidente che se l'Europa, l'Unione Europea, metterà, e non ho dubbi che lo farà, a disposizione centinaia di milioni di euro per cercare di rimontare quello che non avremmo mai creduto di vivere, perché noi eravamo verso una ripresa dalla recessione di qualche anno fa, che colpì, partendo dagli Stati Uniti, un po' tutto il mondo occidentale e non solo. Stavamo riprendendoci, ma ci troviamo di fronte ad una stagione iniziata alla fine dello scorso anno, che partendo da Wuhan è arrivata in Europa, ha colpito il mondo occidentale e poi un po' tutto il pianeta. E quindi dovremo recuperare posti di lavoro, ridare sostenibilità e competitività alle aziende, contemporaneamente però non sbagliando il modello di sviluppo che dovrà, ci auguriamo, accompagnare una ripresa economica, perché dobbiamo appunto recuperare lavoro, non perderlo. Per fare questo, i 17 goals, l'agenda ONU 2030, ha riferimenti secondo me molto importanti. Toccherà però anche a ognuno di noi essere in grado di fare bene quello che serve. Le risorse per la prima volta ci saranno in Europa, o almeno ci saranno in maniera così cospicua. Bisogna che i governi nazionali e le regioni con le città pensino più che al consenso elettorale domattina a come velocemente programmare scelte strategiche per i prossimi 10-20 anni. Lo dico da presidente dell'Emilia Romagna, noi tra pochi giorni firmeremo un patto per il lavoro e per il clima con tutte le parti sociali della mia regione, tutti i sindaci e quindi tutte le città. Lo faremo, ed è una cosa credo unica in Italia, guardando non alla legislatura, cioè ai prossimi 5 anni di governo, essendo stato io riconfermato da pochi mesi, ma al 2030. E quelle priorità, e concludo, dovranno stare in un asse che il CMR e AICRE, e quindi saluto Frédéric Vallier e Carla Rei, ringraziandoli per il loro grande lavoro, da tempo, come anche Emilia sa, insieme all'UCLG, stiamo indicando come priorità. E le priorità secondo me sono 4. La sostenibilità, cioè l'ambiente inteso come opportunità anche per la crescita economica, cioè che non sia solo migliorare i luoghi in cui viviamo, un'aria più pulita, acqua più bevibile, suoli, ma green industry e green economy come opportunità di lavoro e di impresa. Il secondo, la conoscenza, perché è investendo sui saperi, la ricerca, l'innovazione che questo potrà avvenire. Lo dico perché il 70% dei nostri nipoti e già parecchi dei nostri figli faranno lavori che oggi non esistono. Quei lavori arriveranno dall'innovazione tecnologica, digitale e robotica. Non bisogna averne paura. Bisogna mettere a disposizione dei cittadini, delle imprese e delle università o dei centri di ricerca gli strumenti per far sì che vecchi lavori vengano sostituiti da nuovi lavori. Quindi la digitalizzazione del territorio, ad esempio, è fondamentale per dare a tutti i cittadini, in qualsiasi comune o città abitino, dalla montagna alla pianura, dalle metropoli al più piccolo comune, le stesse opportunità di partenza. Il terzo è il tema chiaramente della sanità, perché abbiamo visto che bisogno c'è di una sanità, mi permetto di dire, sempre più pubblica, che venga garantita a un povero esattamente come viene garantito a un ricco. E da ultimo, ovviamente, il tema, ho detto ambiente, ho detto scuola, saperi, università, ho detto sanità, il tema della cosiddetta resilienza, su cui UCLG e CMR hanno spinto molto in questi anni, cioè garantire ai territori di avere una capacità di tenuta e di fiducia verso il futuro sempre più forte. Vi ringrazio molto per il lavoro che state facendo. Anch'io, come Mariangela, spero che ci potremo molto presto rivedere, vorrebbe dire che torniamo a girare, a volare, a incontrarci, però a proposito di tecnologie non ci fermiamo e sfruttiamo quello che il tempo ci impone. Grazie.
Grazie Presidente. It's very inspiring words, which have actually painted a kind of a foundational moment, right, that we are living through. It's a moment where we need to take a stock of where we are. We need to face many of our responsibilities, like you're saying. We haven't done enough. But it is also a moment to look at things from a totally different perspective. And this, you are almost, I'm paraphrasing you here, but a couple of weeks ago, the World Council of UCLG decided that we needed to work towards a pact for the future. You have actually outlined a lot of the axes of that pact for the future, focusing particularly on the planet and then on the people around knowledge with some of the key components. We really hope that this gathering can actually help us think about some of those very important components of this new pact that we need to develop together, not only to survive, but actually to do better, right? And I would like now to introduce Marina Ponti, Director of the UN Action SDG campaign, to share with us how are you seeing the different stakeholders reacting to the SDGs in this very special environment. You just heard, I think Stefano Bonaccini has really given you in 5 minutes the feeling of local and regional leadership throughout the world. How are you seeing the other stakeholders? Because what the magic of the Venice Solutions moment every year is that all these different stakeholders come together. So what are your experiences now, Marina, and what do you see in the future? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Emilia, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I remember well the great discussion we had last year in a breathtaking, Venetian location that I never forget. So, as you said, and as the speakers before me said, the world is upside down. The pandemic has demonstrated both the fragility of our society, but also the failures of our system. It has laid there risks that have been ignored for decades. Inadequate health system was just now reminded by the president, gaps in social protection, structural inequalities, environmental degradation, and the climate crisis. And it also underlined, moving towards the constituency, how unequal we are, because the virus has impacted, precisely as the climate crisis, more the most vulnerable. Those living in poverty, those living in marginalized setting, older people, people with disability, and with pre-existing condition. And the pandemic, and talking, through with many people, many sectors, has also exposed some of the myths that we've been told about. The free markets can deliver healthcare for all, that unpaid care work is not work, that we live in a post-racist world. But as often, as in all the darkest moments in history, challenges come hand in hand with opportunities. And we believe, along with many, many partners, that we are at a turning point for people and the planet. We believe very strongly that we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to turn things around and make happen the bold shifts that are required to achieve a safer and more sustainable and inclusive societies. To be honest, when the SDG were agreed 5 years ago, many people were skeptical that the transformative changes required were too difficult, too costly, and just not practical. But now these bold changes are seen and perceived are indispensable. Also because 2 new factors, and I think they were already mentioned by Bonaccini. First of all, the world is at a halt. So Both leaders and governments at all levels and the private sector are back at the drawing board to redesign how to restart and reshape our society, how to rethink work, production, education, training, mobility, health, and also on the financial side, an enormous quantity of resources have been made available to both public and private sector to make this policy a reality. So we see now the moment for this turning point. And in other words, this is something that you, Emilia, have been advocating for years, and recently also the UN Secretary General called for, is the time for a new social contract between all levels of governments and citizens and the public and the private sector, all together building a world where equal opportunity for all. And also, and I go back to the butterfly that I always carry for the butterfly effect, the pandemic put emphasis on individual action. In the face of a pandemic affecting all the most powerful countries along with the most vulnerable, as of now, the only effective response is individual action, wearing a mask, respecting the physical distancing, reducing contact and movement. So people never than now realize how their behavior can have an impact. And I think that local government can build, because they are the closest to the citizen, can now build on this constituency of people who now are halting the curve and in the future will be willing to behave differently if this has an impact in building healthier society and protect our planet. And also people now, never than before, realize how global problem require, on one side, global solution, but also coordination across sector and levels. And I think, in other words, the issue, which I know is very close to the heart of the people listening today, of decentralization and of clarity of coordination across sector and level, has never been under the spotlight like today. And I think this is something that all of you can really leverage going forward. And let me end at saying that in this, like in any dark moment, let's hope that the suffering, that the human, that the economic, that the social costs that were paid by human life and billions of people across the world will not be wasted. But this pandemic will be a building blocks towards more sustainable and inclusive society and towards the SDG, as we all have mentioned.
Thank you.
Closed by quoting Mandela, who taught us that it always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Marina. In this new virtual world, we no longer hear the applauses, but I am sure the hearts are applauding you and also Stefano and the permanent representative of Italy. I find your summary on what people perceived before this special context on the SDGs about something that was just not practical, right? I think it summarizes very well the very paradox of humans. We are, on the one hand, the most creative creatures, but we also have a tendency not to want to trigger too much change, and we like to accommodate. This pandemic has actually shown us that many of the things that we were already working on and that we already intuitively knew we had to change could actually be changed very, very fast. And President was mentioning around digitalization. Well, that is clearly an area where we have demonstrated that we could make change happen much faster than we were willing to accept before. Let us hope that this is also the case for the rest of the SDGs. And I think this concept towards a new pact, a new global compact, is really a very strong roadmap for us. A roadmap where we, local and regional government associations and networks of cities and territories have a very important role to play, I think, and that we need to define it carefully. I'm delighted now to introduce my colleague, Frédéric Vallier, Secretary General of CEMR, the European section of UCLG, but also speaking here on behalf of our European network Platforma. Frédéric, an important role for associations, right? A challenging time.
Yes, yes, indeed, Emilia. Thank you very much. Buongiorno a tutti. Saluto particolare al nostro presidente Stefano. I'm very happy to see you here, Stefano. And I hope you're doing well and better. Let me first start by saying that, of course, we are delighted to be participating in Venice City Solutions. We miss Venice very much, you know, Carla. We would so much like to be there. There is a word in French that says "La tentation de Venise." You know, it's a book from Alain Juppé from some years ago. You know, when everything goes wrong, we have the temptation to go to Venice to resource. And that's very much what we would need right now, I think, all of us. But let me say a few words also about Venice City Solution, because Platforma has been a partner from the start, and this forum owes a lot to Carla, because she put a lot of energy in organizing this, and the first editions were quite a challenge to build. And now when I see this panel and all the participants, I think it's a great opportunity. And thank you also to Diana Lopez, who is instrumental also in organizing all this. After what President Bonaccini was saying, which of course I recognize very much, because this is the kind of agenda that we want to put in our discussions with EU representatives, with national governments, and with international organizations. And certainly we share that with ICRE, with UCLG, with the Global Task Force of Local Governments. But one thing I would like to share with you is how we can transform a threat like the COVID-19 into an opportunity to think and build our economies, our societies with different perspectives than the ones we had in the past. We have been alerting the international community about the climate crisis for many years, sometimes not always successfully, and we see also the difficulties that we see in applying the COP of Paris agreement into action. But this pandemic suddenly showed that when we are confronted to such a situation, we have the capacity to react and to transform rapidly our way of doing. Of course, this is terrible to say that, because we see also the tragedies that are behind that. But let's hope that we can find a way to rebuild our economies, our societies into sustainable, green, equal, and resilient ones, like President Bonaccini is calling for. Decentralized cooperation, and there I come back to Platforma, is a great space to build common solutions, to exchange on practices all across the world, and to propose solutions to national state and to stakeholders, to the citizens as well, and for us in Europe, to the European Commission and the European institutions. And Platforma is gathering a wide range, Emilia said that earlier, of actors, national associations like ICRE, European networks like CMR, of course, international organizations like UCLG, IEMF, CLGF, and cities and regions who are active in development cooperation. And this platform is the best way, and that's the way that we found, so we consider it's the best one. Maybe there could be other ones, to talk and to negotiate and to discuss with European institutions in designing the programming of cooperation development led by the European Union. And at this moment, I want to share with you, also with international institutions, that local governments will need your support to continue developing action plans and activities linked to cooperation, decentralized cooperation. I think this crisis has revealed the need to learn together. It has revealed, and I think we have done, I don't want to give myself flowers, but I think UCLG and CMR have been conducting a series, because we had to change also the way we were working, a series of seminar, webinars, task force on how to manage COVID-19. And I was amazed of the number of participants and the interest that it rose in many of our constituencies, in many of our members. And so this shows that we need this space of exchange. We need this space of co-learning. We need this space of co-building. And I don't want to be too long, but just to conclude, I would like to mention that in the next year, I mean, CMR is going to celebrate its 70th anniversary in January 2021. So we are an old lady, sometimes I'm used to say, but we want to take this opportunity not only to look back to the successes that we have been through all along these years, but to project ourselves, to project what European local and regional governments can be in 2051, when CMR will be 100 years old. And so to build a multi-annual strategy, well, the multi-annual strategy is already written, but it will be adopted then, and to invent a model of development that takes local territories, local regional governments and their citizens as the driver of the recovery that Europe needs, and as a driver for the world to show that we can, as President Bonaccini mentioned it, be resilient, be sustainable, green, and resilient. And that's the work that we want to conduct. And certainly Venice City Solution is for that a great moment to do it and to help us in shaping this future we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frederic. Congratulations in advance for that 70th anniversary. Of course, we will celebrate next year with you properly, part and parcel of the over 100-year-old movement that United Cities and Local Governments represents, with solidarity very much in our DNA, and also city diplomacy understood as a transformational diplomacy, which I think is why our live learning experiences and all these series of webinars that we have been having and we continue to have now with cities are listening are so important. When cities come together, it's not about solving conflicts, it's about finding new solutions, inspiring each other. And the space that Venice Solutions offers to us is doing that also with other stakeholders. I think that is extremely important. Also, a very strong roadmap for our European membership, as defined and explained by Frederic, and one that is shared with one of our very critical partners. UN Habitat is facing also a very important year in the reporting of the new urban agenda in 21. For the constituency of local governments, the new urban agenda is a very critical part of the 2030 agenda. In fact, we think that those global goals are all interconnected. The agendas are single and universal, and without the implementation of the new urban agenda, we will not be able to achieve the SDGs. So a very big year also for our colleagues of UN Habitat coming up, and a very intensive year, intensive and important role that you have played already in the international ecosystem, supporting also the role of cities. So we are delighted to have you here, Rafael Tutz, Director of Global Solutions Divisions. The floor is yours, Raf. What do we have in petto for next year?
Thank you very much, Emilia, and friends, colleagues. It's a very special moment for us, indeed. This day actually is something that for us is a moment to first thank everyone, the host, the city, the region, and the country for taking this initiative, and also all the partners, UCLG, ICRE, UNDP, and the SDG campaign, for the strong partnership that has now continued, and the work that brought us together to celebrate this third edition of the Venice City Solutions 2030. And you can assure that UN Habitat will continue to support this path and this series for the years to come. Now, this City Solutions 2030 comes at a very particular time in our history, as was mentioned. Since the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are seeing that governments, local governments, are forced to take often unprecedented, very drastic measures to curb the spread of the virus and mitigate its impacts. And cities are indeed at the epicenter of the pandemic, accounting for approximately 90% of the registered cases. And at the same time, the urban economies, they make up about 80% of the global GDP, and they're critical for the global urban recovery. And I really hope very strongly that the cities and the regions will get indeed a strong role, both in the design and in the implementation of the European Recovery Fund. Now, we see that the current crisis is highlighting the exacerbation of at least 4 challenges. First, the job markets and the economy are so heavily impacted, and this leads us to a global recession. The urban economy is particularly impacted. Second, the virus and its associated responses have disproportionate effects on vulnerable populations, which are deepening inequalities and increasing the risks of social divisions. Third, the use of the social and physical space has been severely affected in this crisis, questioning the traditional models of spatial organization, especially in cities, and asking for creative responses. And finally, the governance systems are facing daunting challenges for which few governments are prepared. So these 4 issues are unpacked in the forthcoming UN Habitat report on cities and pandemics towards a more just, green and healthy future, which is currently being reviewed and will be launched early next year. This report emphasizes that each crisis presents us with an opportunity to do better, to correct the course and ultimately to shape our future, and that cities represent a privileged arena for human interaction where creativity and innovation meet with the complex network of relations involving communities and different sectors. So everyone on this panel seems to agree that this is a special moment. Emilia says a foundational moment. And it's indeed the time to harness the transformative potential of urbanization and to build on the unique framework offered by the 23rd Agenda, by the New Urban Agenda, and by the Decade of Action. So we are glad to focus these 2 days of the debates on visualizing Agenda 2030 in the city. Because visualizing is a way to connect cities to real life, to help us to better imagine, to create solutions, to shape and to govern our cities towards a more sustainable, more resilient, and more inclusive future. I would like to conclude by stressing 3 points that I hope you can take with you throughout these 2 days of debate. 1, partnerships and inclusion. No city can achieve the SDGs and recover from the current crisis alone. We need partnerships and exchange of experiences that can inspire innovation and mutual learning. Also, citizens need to be put at the center of development with special attention to vulnerable groups and minorities. 2, climate change. The tale of the ongoing pandemic and the saga of climate change are inherently interlinked. Climate change needs to be on the top of the political agendas and treated as an emergency, just as the current COVID-19 crisis is being treated. The steps being taken to recover from the pandemic must also advance the SDG targets and the Paris Agreement. And cities are the cornerstone in this effort. And finally, monitoring and reporting. The future is uncertain and unpredictable, so we need robust monitoring and mechanisms at the local level that can help cities in assessing their performance against the SDGs and guide the formulation of evidence-based policies that support local and national development priorities while advancing the SDGs. So I wish you 2 days of very interesting and fruitful debates and enjoy the event. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Raf, for these profound thoughts as we are used from you. I think this pandemic has made us also reconsider what is essential both in cities, but also at global level, and it has made it easier to understand how relevant that partnership is. I'm not certain that we are at the moment of your very last point around monitoring. It is true that we are very conscious that we don't know what is coming, but there is a very big part of things that we know we need to do. And I think gathering information to improve performance in many of those areas will be very, very critical. So thank you for that. And we will be very happy, all of the partners that are here and those that will participate over these 2 days to accompany you and Habitat in the important role and important path that you have presented. Thank you very much. We look forward to reading the report as well. And contributing when possible. So thank you very much, Ralph. And now I would like to give the floor to the UN Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Bureau of Policy and Program Support of UNDP. Very, very special welcome, not only because UNDP is such a critical partner and has been for us in the notion of localization. We started to use localizing SDGs long before anybody was talking about this. We were talking about localizing global agendas. UNDP has always been a very important actor in that concept in making sure that the international community understood that local action was part of development policies, but also because you are making a very important effort being with us during Thanksgiving, and we are delighted to have you with us. Mr. Haoliang too, it's not the first time that you come together to one of these events that we organize. We look forward to a strong roadmap ahead, inspired by Venice Solutions. The floor is yours, Assistant Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Emilia. I am very happy that I have this opportunity to join you again. As Ambassador Zapia, distinguished presidents, secretary generals, colleagues on the panel, and all participants connected today. So greetings from New York. It is my great pleasure to be here with you in this opening session of this year's edition of the Venice City Solutions 2030. Since its inception, the Venice City Solutions 2030 has convened the leaders and the stakeholders from around the world as a laboratory for ideas and solutions, a catalyst for transformative change, and a champion for sustainable development. It has helped translate the Global 2030 Agenda for sustainable development into local actions. So our gathering this year is particularly significant for the challenges that we all face around the world and in our cities, now that we are all deeply affected by the coronavirus pandemic. More than ever, Agenda 2030 should be our compass for our future development and our compass out of the crisis, moving us towards a world that is sustainable, resilient, inclusive, and more equal. Visualizing 2030 agenda in our cities, therefore, cannot be more timely and is an urgent call to action. We know that COVID-19 is not only a health crisis. Its social and economic impact is affecting millions of people. The containment measures that cities are compelled to take have caused the business closures, job losses, and other interlocking and knock-on effects. So this in turn has resulted in diminished revenues for the local and the regional governments, making it harder to maintain, let alone increase the needed service delivery. The World Bank estimates that urban poverty will be on the rise, with overall 115 million more people being pushed into extreme poverty in 2020. UNDP's latest studies also show that if the pandemic recovery becomes protracted, and if we do not take measures that are SDG-centric, promote good governance and green recovery, the world will see 207 million more people remain in extreme poverty by 2030. So the Venice City Solutions 2030 this year is taking place at a critical time. We know the challenges in urban development are extremely complex, from service delivery to clean air, from climate change that Ralph mentioned, to disaster preparedness, from good governance to inclusive economic growth. Imagine a complex web of policies, budgets, institutions, and regulatory frameworks of governments, national governments, cities, and local authorities. So the single point solutions, small fixes, and the siloed approaches won't be enough. So we needed to work together with a mindset for multi-stakeholder collaboration, systems innovation, and transformative change. We have an opportunity. The decade of action is thrust upon us. The SDGs will not be achieved without the direct engagement of local and regional governments, the localization agenda Emilia was discussing earlier. In this regard, we're encouraged that many local governments are already using the 2030 agenda as their main planning instrument. The Venice City Solutions 2030 has provided many solid examples of what is possible and necessary through local action. Experience has shown supporting the capacities of local governments to tackle complex and interconnected challenges is crucial. This will also require collective action. In this regard, we believe we needed to see citizens of cities not only as recipients of services, but also as active participants in co-creating solutions. UNDP has worked closely with UCLG and the UN Habitat to develop the learning modules for localizing the SDGs and is delivering them to support local and regional governments to create local plans and report on voluntary national and local reviews. To close, let me reiterate UNDP's deep appreciation and our commitment to our collaboration and our appreciation for the leadership of the Venice City Solutions 2030. We thank the government of Italy for the support all these years, including in bringing the recommendations of Venice to the high-level political forum at the UN. This is important as the UN normally interacts with national governments, and this effort brings the voice of local authorities to the UN too. We also thank our valuable partners, UCLG, ICRE, UN Habitat, the UN SDG Action Campaign, and the Platformer, and all who took place to engage today for making Agenda 2030 an agenda for all people. I wish you all a successful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for showing this commitment. I think this virtual room can feel the consolidation of something that started not that long ago. Year by year, we have been able to feel this renewed commitment, this empowerment of the different partners, and the consolidation of the partnerships. We are starting to become a true community. That comes together not only in Venice every year, but also in between. And I think that in between is also extremely important. From the perspective, my task is coming to an end. So I just want to leave two thoughts from the United Cities and Local Government perspective. We think that Venice Solutions can truly become this hub of hubs. And as you know, our organization is promoting local solutions to be showcased in what we call local for action hubs, where we show the connection between the priorities of cities with the sustainable development goals. And by coming together within United Cities and Local Governments, we provide the international dimension and exposure to those local actions and priorities, hoping that they will inspire others. Well, Venice City Solutions is going to become the annual gathering of those local for action hubs around the world. And there will be such a session tomorrow around local for action hubs. So we are truly grateful to ICRE, but also to all the other partners to have trusted us to bring this as a contribution to this event. And finally, I want to paraphrase the leadership of United Cities and Local Governments, local and regional governments around the world that are very conscious that their cities and territories will never be the same. They are also conscious that the sacrifices that we are making now cannot be just left sacrifices that we are asking, including from future generations, because we are using their resources. We want to make sure that inequalities are no longer an option in the building blocks of the transformations that we need to to promote. And we want to also put up front a very important antidote to the impact of COVID. And we believe culture is a very important prisma to look at solutions in these challenging times that we have ahead. We are very well aware that the most vulnerable in our societies are the measurements of our society's successes. And we hope that throughout these 2 days, we will make sure that we exchange stories, experiences, and visions on how to ensure that there are less vulnerable and that we find solutions together, starting locally, but always looking globally to our challenges. So I am now in your hands, Carla Rey, Secretary General of ICRE, the alma mater of this whole event, together with Diana Lopez. Many coffees have been drunk to come to this format and those before. Carla, I would like you not to only share the methodology of these 2 days, but also to give us a little bit of your feeling on how you see this baby evolving, and also to make sure that you acknowledge many of the local and Italian partners that are making this possible. So Carla, congratulations in advance, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Emilia. Thank you, all the panelists, and thank you to this big family or community, as Emilia said, that allowed us to launch this third edition of our Global Lab. It's amazing how this strong partnership is bringing us year after year to achieve those fantastic results. So thank you all. Yes, to introduce a little bit of what we are going to see this year for this edition, I want to say that this digital edition, we have chosen a theme that suits to this moment, visualization. Learning to see, using the gaze, but also the imagination. We must use this moment to imagine and plan for the future. We don't want to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, but how the 2030 agenda can become the starting point for changes needed to ensure a more sustainable future. And we want to imagine this future through the eyes of the cities, since cities are the most flexible places and the ones capable to reinvent themselves. And we want also to reflect on how the SDGs are the key to rebuild cities and how rebuilding them better. The 2020 theme that we choose, visualizing the 2030 agenda in the city, will be faced with a new methodology that allows you to experience the complexity of this Venetian lab that we built. Because we have welcomed cities, UN agencies, governments, private sector, academia, third sector, citizenship in a place as it is a local for action hub where we build, we think, we invent, and we exchange ideas. So let me introduce you into our program that we thought through 4 activities that you can also follow in those 2 days through our Venice City Solutions 2030 YouTube channel. The first activity that we want to do with you is the thinking. We will have one-on-one sessions with experts, representative of different sectors, such as Tatiana Bilbao, the famous Mexican architect, such as Marlene Simeon, director of Platforma, the local network for decentralized cooperation, such as Francesca Lavazza, Italian entrepreneur of an international company well known for its commitment to Agenda 2030, and Priyanka Sinha, international consultant on eco-sustainable innovation. The second activity that we want to propose you is the discussion, debating on different thematic. We will have 4 sessions of debate. The yellow session, led by Fraunhofer Institute, on connecting the SDGs to the territory. We want to think at this point the visualizing as in a spatial dimension action and their impact across urban areas. And we will be supported by urban planners in this activity. We will have a second session, the green one, led by UNDP Art, about interactions and connection of SDGs and between the SDG actors. Here, our visualizing means making something visible. So we will talk about the value of the partnership, but also what cities are doing to involve territorial stakeholders and to make SDGs actions visible to the others. The red session, led by UN Habitat, will talk about the vision of the future. Many panelists were saying that we need to visualize as imagining, but also concretely planning. So with the horizon of the 2030, how the SDGs can help to imagine the cities we want. The last session, the blue session, led by UCLG, will discuss on local individual actions with global impact. Here, visualizing is like showing, representing. So how local action can have a multiplier effect, which can have an impact in global policies. At the end of the 4th session, as every year, we will have the recommendation that we will brought to New York, to the HLPF, to strengthen, as it was reported also by the other panelists, the role of the local authorities to United Nations. The third activities we want to share with you is exactly the sharing, because we are a hub of local collection hubs. Venice City Solution is a key platform to visualize, to connect, to synchronize, to accelerate the localization of the 2030 agenda. And we will share with you the inputs of all the apps in the world. The 4th and last activity that we want to propose you is interacting and stimulating. In this digital edition, all our partners have prepared videos for mapping the SDGs experiences, and I thank you all of those. As ICRE, we will take you to visit the city of Venice through the SDGs, and we will use the sounds, the light, the architecture of the city to visualize them. As Ka-Fosker of Art and Culture in Venice, to Avatsa Group, on the other hand, we will talk about their Towards project, art and SDGs linked to urban context. And as a studio, instead, we will talk about green mobility, and we will share with you their project CO2 No. So we will have 2 days full of stimuli, full of exchanges, each of them as in the all gold Venetian mosaic of the St. Mark's Basilica, but they shape the mosaic only when they are all together. That's the Venice City's participation in all the sessions. So let me thank again all the co-organizers, the partners, and all the participants that will stay with us. And I wish you good continuation to all of you. Thank you, Emilia.